If you watched my video about how a video game killed Mucha Lucha on my main channel, you might remember that one of my childhood dreams I never got to fulfill was playing the Billy and Mandy fighting game. Well, after all these years, I finally did. And I have a lot to say about it because the game is extremely imperfect, but it's also packed with references and genuine love for the series. Hi, I'm Dr. Panda, the only panda who has ever been home to an evil crime lord, and in this video, we're talking about the forgotten Billy and Mandy game. A game that includes 15 playable characters, or maybe more on that later, 8 stages, and an actual story mode with cutscenes and everything. Though you'll see why I think it was very disappointing. Let's get started. Billy and Mandy was a 2006 video game developed by Midway as part of a deal with Cartoon Network to produce games based on 3 of their series, the other 2 being Ed, Edd, and Eddy, which had come out a year earlier, and Dexter's Laboratory, which ended up being cancelled during development for reasons I couldn't quite figure out. It's a 3D fighting game in the style of Power Stone with a heavy emphasis on interactive stage elements. In fact, every stage will at some point summon NPCs that you must deal with, or else they can hit you with catastrophic consequences, like the clowns in Billy's house or the Nurglings in the underworld. These characters, which the game calls Horde characters, appear across multiple stages and will be important in a bit, because there's a secret in the game that directly involves them. The game is surprisingly addictive with constant stimuli during fights. While battling up to 3 opponents, you also have to dodge the stage's own hazardous elements and use them against your rivals along with a wide variety of items that spawn throughout the match. And while it's true that the game takes heavy inspiration from Power Stone and Smash, I think it's unfair to call it just a clone. It's very easy to tell that this game was made with love. And why do I say this? Because the game is absolutely packed with references to the original series, which you can find everywhere, in the playable characters, stages, items, and even each character's costumes. One of the items that gave me a huge childhood flashback was Aunt Collie's cookies, which in the game give you a random power-up effect when you pick them up, and which is a reference to the episode Recipe for Disaster, where Billy eats the People Scouts cookies, so Grim decides to help him by using his great aunt's cookie recipe to replace them. Quick, turn on the notification bell. There's also the Scythe 2.0, which you can use to shoot lasers and which is inspired by the episode of the same name, in which Grim decides to upgrade his scythe to a newer model while the old one is being refurbished, until the new scythe gets fed up with being used only for chores, escapes, and decides to take on the role of the Grim Reaper itself. The same attention to detail applies to costumes, where you can unlock some great references like Mandroid, which is really cool. Now, earlier I said the game has 8 stages, but I should also mention that every stage has at least 2 phases. Let me explain. First, there's the standard starting phase, which is basically the normal version of the stage you selected, but after a few minutes of fighting, an event will trigger that transforms the stage into its second phase. For example, in the Underworld, which in the series is where Grim became the Grim Reaper and is home to all kinds of creatures and unknown beasts, the stage starts as a rocky arena surrounded by lava. But after a while, a cutscene plays where a giant snake appears and destroys everything, forcing the characters to fight on its back during the second phase of the stage. I know a lot of people prefer stages to stay static, which is actually an option the game allows, but I don't know. I really like the constant changes, especially when they're tied to references from the show. And speaking of stages and references, probably my favorite one happens in the second phase of the Afterlife stage, where we can see Boskov as a rug. Apparently, life got pretty rough for him. Also, I'm already working on a video about the failed Samurai Jack game from 2004 for PlayStation 2 and GameCube, so subscribe. Now, in order to eliminate your opponents, you need to perform a kind of final smash. Basically, when an opponent has no more lives remaining and their health bar is depleted, they become stunned, allowing you to approach them and trigger a quick time event. If you complete it successfully, the opponent is officially eliminated. It's a simple system where you just have to press the button the game tells you to, but honestly, I don't think it was necessary, and I don't think it makes the game any better either. I much prefer Smash's system where you simply knock your enemy out using your combos, without the game forcing you to perform a specific attack to finish them off. On top of that, at some point I stumbled upon a serious problem with this quick time event that I still don't understand how it happened, and I'll tell you about it in a second when we talk about the story mode. Because yes, the game has 3 game modes: Versus, Mission, and Story. Versus mode is a standard mode where you can play custom matches against the CPU or other human players. This mode offers a good variety of fight modes, ranging from capture the flag to hitting more dummies than your rivals to collecting coins. It even has a basketball-style mode using a Cyclops eye, so you can tell they made an effort to add more depth to the game. Capture the Flag was particularly fun for me, but if you want to unlock things, you'll need to leave versus mode and move on to one of the other two modes. In mission mode, you basically complete missions within a tier, and once you complete enough of them, the next tier unlocks, giving you access to even more missions. And for me, this mode has one very bad thing and one very good thing. On the negative side, most missions boil down to simply defeating all enemies without much depth. They set up certain scenarios and pseudo-stories, but everything ultimately comes down to punching everyone until you win. There's very little emphasis on the supposed story or context of each mission, and there are no cutscenes here like there are in story mode. Even so, this mode gives you a real sense of progression because you're constantly unlocking new things, from concept art to game modes, which definitely makes you want to keep playing. Plus, there are a few missions that add some variety by using the other battle modes. While most missions are about defeating all your rivals, some of them require you to beat your opponent in basketball, for example. The last mode, and the game's main one, is Story Mode. And this is a good moment to point out how good the game's animations look. I don't know, they feel very fluid and surprisingly natural. That said, I have to say the Story Mode was pretty disappointing for me. Okay, so the plot itself is simple and silly, exactly what you'd expect from a Billy and Mandy game. Grim learns that someone broke into his trunk and released his mojo balls, which are orbs of dark magic that infect anyone who touches them with supernatural rage, causing everyone in Ennsville to start fighting each other. Grim and the kids travel through several locations from the series to recover the mojo balls and look for clues about who's responsible, getting into fights along the way, because this is a fighting game and of course has to have fights. After several battles, the group returns to Billy's house, where they encounter the creepy brain-eating meteor from that one episode where Billy feeds him brains, the final boss. After defeating it, we find out that the real culprit was Billy himself, who opened Grim's trunk hoping to free Mo and Joe. The story ends with Mandy breaking the fourth wall and expressing hope that the game includes a mode where they can all beat him up.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I hope this thing's got a mode where we can just beat on Billy.
And my main issue with this mode is tied to the unlockable characters, so let's talk about those. There's no sugarcoating it. The character selection is pretty small. The game only has a total of 15 characters, which is basically the same number of just starters that Smash Melee had when it came out 5 years earlier. And if we're gonna talk about starters, when you boot up the game for the first time, you'll realize you only have 4 characters available: Billy, Mandy, Grim, and Irwin. And yeah, honestly, that's a pretty weak starting lineup, though at least it gives you some motivation to keep playing and unlock the rest of the roster. These characters and their alternate costumes are unlocked by completing missions or finishing story mode with specific characters. The unlockable characters are Boogie, Dracula, Hoss, Jack, Scar, Eris, Fred Fredburger, Lord Payne, Billy's dad is Mogar, Nergal, and Nergal Jr. Fortunately, just completing story mode one time unlocks 4 of these characters at once, and from that point on, the game at least starts to feel a bit more playable in terms of roster variety. But actually, I lied. There aren't 15 characters in total, there are 20. The thing is, there are 5 additional characters that can be unlocked secretly, whose silhouettes don't even appear as locked slots in the character select screen, and this is where my biggest issue comes in. These 5 ultra-mysterious characters aren't nearly as interesting as you'd expect, especially considering how hard they are to unlock compared to the rest of the cast. They're more like a nice, unexpected surprise than something that genuinely motivates you to sit down and grind the game just to unlock them. In fact, they're just horde characters, basically the equivalent of unlocking a Goomba in Smash. Although, you know what? On second thought, I'd totally be into being able to control a Goomba in Smash. Anyway, these 5 secret characters are Nurgling, unlocked by completing story mode with every character. Chicken, which requires completing story mode with every character and playing for 10 hours. Viking, unlocked by completing story mode with every character and destroying most of the letters in the credits. Clown, which you unlock by fighting 100 times in versus mode. And Pumpkin, unlocked by completing story mode with every character and dealing 100,000 damage points in versus mode. And although some may argue that unlocking these characters might give you a bit of motivation to keep playing after you've already completed a significant portion of the game, the truth is that they are incredibly underwhelming. And it gets worse once you realize they have a very limited playable moveset compared to the other characters and aren't even usable in certain game modes. Now, as you may have noticed, all of them except for Clown require you to complete story mode with every character in order to unlock them. The problem is that the game doesn't offer a different story for each character. Instead, you're forced to watch the exact same cutscenes with Billy, Mandy, and Grim at least once per character if you want to unlock this ultra-secret bunch. And honestly, it's just not worth it. After completing story mode a couple of times, there's really nothing new left for this mode to offer. And the worst part is that even if you're not interested in these extra characters, you'll still have to go through this process if you want to unlock the alternate costumes. Because yes, to unlock the first alternate costume for each character, you're required to complete story mode with that specific character. My theory is that the developers realized they already had the Horde characters modeled and equipped with a moveset, so turning them into unlockable characters was an easy way to artificially extend the game's lifespan. And while it technically works, it also makes the experience feel tedious and repetitive. Now, as is often the case with games based on licensed IPs, development time is short and budgets aren't very high, which usually results in games that feel unpolished and suffer from noticeable bugs. Billy and Mandy is no exception. Movement during gameplay feels stiff and heavy, and you'll often feel like your character isn't responding exactly how you want it to. On top of that, there are noticeable delays in certain actions that over time definitely hurt the overall experience. But maybe the strangest issue I ran into was a bug I encountered during my first attempts at playing story mode. The first battle would go just fine, but when I reached the second one, and after depleting Jack-o'-lantern's health and triggering my final smash thing, the game would for some reason completely refuse to register the button inputs it was asking me to press. And this didn't just happen once or twice. No, it happened at least 5 times. I restarted the battle over and over and nothing ever changed, which was especially frustrating because story mode doesn't have any kind of save system. So when I finally restarted the game, hoping it would fix the issue, I had to start the entire mode from the very beginning. And no, it didn't fix it. Either way, the Billy and Mandy game is a force of nature that we should be grateful even exists. It's very imperfect and clearly had a very short development cycle, but even so, it's a game with a lot of heart. And sticking with classic Cartoon Network for a moment, do you remember the forgotten Cartoon Network Racing? With its 18 tracks and 20 characters, including some I'm pretty sure you'd never expect to see. I made a video about it and you can check it out right here. Subscribe for more. Dr. Panda out.